When you hear the word genius, what's the first image that pops into your head? You probably picture someone loud, competitive, and just obviously brilliant, right? For a lot of us, that's the stereotype. But today, we're going to dive into what the research actually says and uncover the often subtle and kind of misunderstood hallmarks of high intelligence in women. We're moving way beyond what you see in the movies.
Okay, so let's get right into it. On the one hand, you have that classic movie genius, loud, competitive, impossible to miss. But the reality that research points to for so many highly intelligent women is something else entirely. It's way more nuanced, deeply observant, and a whole lot more reflective. So that just begs the question, right? If the stereotype is off, what are the real signs? What does high intelligence in women actually look like from day to day? Well, that is exactly what we are here to break down. To make sense of it all, we've grouped the key traits into three main themes. First up, we'll explore the rich inner world. Then we're going to look at observing and connecting, followed by a mindset of growth. And we'll tie it all together in our final section, redefining brilliance. All right, let's jump right in with our first section, the rich inner world. This is all about those internal cognitive traits and what it's actually like to experience the world with a highly intelligent mind. Now, what's so fascinating here is that these aren't just random traits on a list. They actually create this powerful feedback loop. You've got this insatiable curiosity, that constant need to know the why and how, which drives these constant intellectual pursuits. And of course, to process all that new information, a comfort with solitude becomes absolutely essential. It's not about being lonely, it's about needing that quiet time to recharge and think things through. Each part just fuels the next. And that brings us to a really crucial concept called metacognition. This is a huge hallmark of high self-awareness. It means you don't just have thoughts, you can actually step back and analyze them. It is, quite literally, thinking about your thinking, and it's so key for self-improvement. And this is a perfect illustration of another trait, leaping thought patterns. Her brain will often connect point A directly to point D, completely skipping the steps in between. Now, this is incredibly efficient, but you can imagine how it can make conversations a little challenging sometimes, as she might have to backtrack and explain all the invisible connections she made in a split second. You know, this heightened awareness isn't just cognitive. Many gifted women also experience a heightened sensory sensitivity. Because their brains are processing so much more information per second, they can have this genuine overexcitability to things like loud noises, bright lights, or even just the subtle emotional energy of a room. So let's just pause here for a second. As we talk about this rich inner world, does any of this feel familiar? Does your own mind work this way, or maybe it makes you think of someone you know? Okay, let's build on that and move into our second section, observing and connecting. We're shifting gears a bit from the internal world to how this kind of intelligence actually shows up when interacting with the world around us. So here's the thing, these external skills are all deeply connected. High emotional intelligence lets her accurately read the room. This is fueled by her acute observation skills, that ability to notice a tiny change in someone's tone or a small detail that everyone else misses. And then it's all communicated through high verbal fluency, that gift of making really complex ideas sound simple. And having this kind of combination naturally leads to a very clear preference in conversation. For a mind that's just wired for depth and connection, small talk can feel incredibly draining. It's those meaningful dialogues, the deep dives into abstract ideas that are truly energizing and, fulfilling. This is such a brilliant way to picture the idea of pattern recognition. The brain isn't like a neat filing cabinet where knowledge is stored away in separate folders. No, it's much more like a web, constantly making connections in seeing how a concept from psychology might actually solve a problem in business or even in gardening. All right, on to our final theme, a mindset of growth. This section is so fascinating because it connects high intelligence directly to humility, which I know might seem a little counterintuitive at first. I mean, these traits just completely blow that old know-it-all stereotype out of the water. A truly intelligent mind actually welcomes being proven wrong with better evidence. That's what intellectual humility is. It resists the status quo, not just to be difficult, but because it's always looking for a more logical, more efficient way. And it shows high adaptability, quickly picking up new systems instead of getting stuck in old ones. And this leads us to a really powerful paradox. Because she has such high standards and is so aware of the sheer vastness of knowledge out there, she's actually more likely to experience imposter syndrome. It's that classic case of
The more you learn, the more you realize just how much you don't know. This deep self-awareness also fosters a really strong sense of independent thought. She isn't easily swayed by peer pressure or what's popular. Her convictions are built on a solid foundation of her own rigorous research and logic.
Okay, we have covered a lot of ground, from the inner world to our interactions with the outer world and the mindset that ties it all together. So let's pull everything together in our final section, redefining brilliance, and really focus on the key takeaways.
This table is a really great summary of what we've learned. The inner world shows up as this rich life of reflection and learning. The outer world appears as a nuanced understanding of people and systems. And that growth mindset manifests as a constant drive to improve and question everything. It really paints a much more subtle, complex, and frankly, more interesting picture of genius than the one we started with. So we'll leave you with this final thought to reflect on. Now that you're familiar with these quieter, more nuanced signs of high intelligence, take a moment to think, who in your life will you see differently?